Bullies mock classmate until veteran teaches them respect. In a school hallway, laughter turns cruel as bullies mock a defenseless classmate. But everything changes when a quiet veteran steps in. With calm words and a powerful presence, he reminds everyone that true strength is not found in mocking the weak, but in protecting them. His story of sacrifice and honor transforms hearts, leaving behind unforgettable lessons of dignity, courage, and respect. Watch this moving story unfold and reflect on what strength truly means. Veteran story, respect story, anti-bullying story, inspirational story, life lessons, emotional story, true strength, school bullying, hero story, veteran teaches respect, inspirational video, story about respect, dignity and courage, powerful life lesson. Respect is strength, courage and honor. Anti-bullying lesson, emotional storytelling, cinematic story, motivational story. It began with laughter, the sharp, mocking kind that slices through silence like broken glass. Three boys stood at the center of the hallway, their voices rising above the chatter of students shuffling to class. Their target was not each other, but a smaller classmate, a boy who clutched his books tight against his chest, as if the thin covers could shield him from cruelty. His eyes darted toward the lockers, toward the floor, anywhere but the sneering faces that surrounded him. "Look at him," one bully jeered. "Scared to even speak. What a loser." The words hung heavy, echoing through the corridor where dozens of others stood, watching, pretending not to notice. Some looked down at their phones, others whispered nervously, and a few even smirked as if silence excused their complicity. The boy's shoulders trembled. He wanted to vanish, to melt into the polished floor, but the laughter only grew louder, more vicious. And then, a voice cut through, low, steady, and startlingly calm. "Is that what you call strength?" The hallway froze. Every head turned. At the far end stood a man who did not belong in this world of lockers and textbooks. His posture was upright, his gaze firm, his clothing simple, worn boots, faded jeans, and a jacket that had clearly weathered storms. His presence alone shifted the air, as if the building itself recognized something about him that demanded attention. He was a veteran, though no one in that hallway knew his full story yet. His silence carried weight, the kind that made even laughter feel out of place. The bullies scoffed, masking unease. "What's it to you, old man?" one sneered. The man said nothing at first. His eyes lingered on the smaller boy, still clutching his books, then returned to the mockers. His stillness was not weakness, it was warning. This was not just a hallway, it had become a battlefield of respect. He had once stood on very different ground. Years earlier, under the blistering sun of a foreign desert, this same man had carried the weight of survival on his shoulders. Dust had filled his lungs, gunfire had echoed in the distance, and nights were lit not by stars, but by the fire of conflict. He had been young then, though even youth was stolen quickly in war. Each sunrise was uncertain, each meal a reminder of scarcity, and each face he saw might be the last. He remembered the smell of smoke, acrid, burning, relentless, the grit of sand against his skin as he pressed himself low to the ground. The cries of those he fought beside, brothers in uniform who had become closer than blood. He remembered carrying a wounded comrade on his back, legs shaking, but refusing to stop, because stopping meant loss. And he remembered the silence after battle, silence not of peace but of absence, friends who would never laugh again, promises cut short. When he finally returned home, he carried invisible scars. Not everyone saw them, but he felt them in the quiet moments, in the hollow echo of names that no longer answered. He did not ask for recognition. He asked only for dignity, for the world to remember that freedom was not free, that respect was the smallest tribute one could give. Now, in this ordinary school hallway, he saw the same cruelty he had witnessed in war, though in a different shape. Not with weapons, but with words. Not with soldiers, but with children. And he would not allow it to stand. The bullies shifted uncomfortably. One muttered something under his breath, but the words faltered under the man's gaze. He had not raised his voice. He had not moved a step. Yet his presence pressed upon them like an unseen force. Finally, he spoke again. His voice was soft, almost gentle, but it cut deeper than any shout. I've seen what real strength looks like. It's not mocking the weak. It's standing for them. A ripple moved through the crowd. Students who had been silent now lifted their eyes, drawn in by the gravity of his words. The smaller boy looked up for the first time, hope flickering faintly in his gaze. The veteran continued, I once knew men who never came home. They faced fear you cannot imagine. They carried each other when their bodies gave out. They gave their lives so others could live. Do you know what every one of them had in common? Respect for each other, for life itself. He paused, letting silence stretch, heavy with meaning. And here you stand, trying to build your strength by tearing someone else down. That's not strength. That's weakness disguised as pride. The bullies shifted again. Their laughter was gone now, replaced by restless glances, as if the ground beneath them had become unsteady. One boy's jaw clenched, but his eyes faltered when they met the veteran's steady stare. The hallway remained silent, but it was no longer the silence of complicity. It was the silence of realization, of hearts beginning to shift. The veteran looked at the smaller boy, still gripping his books. His voice softened further. You carry yourself with courage even when others try to break you. That is strength. Never forget that. The boy swallowed hard, emotion rising in his throat. For the first time that day, his back straightened slightly. The veteran turned back to the crowd. Every one of you will face battles in your life. Some on fields far away, some right here in hallways like this. When that moment comes, you will be judged not by how loud you are, not by how cruel you can be, but by how you treat those who cannot fight back. He let his final words hang like a banner unfurled. Respect is the highest form of strength. The shift was visible. Heads bowed, eyes softened. Even the bullies, caught in the weight of truth, found their bravado dissolving. One muttered an apology under his breath, barely audible, but it was enough to spark something greater. Other voices followed, soft at first, then stronger. Apologies, acknowledgments, words that had never before been spoken in this hallway. And then, one by one, students stepped closer to the smaller boy. They stood beside him, no longer silent witnesses, but allies. The crowd, once passive, now formed a shield. Not out of fear, but out of respect. The bullies, outnumbered not in fists but in conscience, lowered their eyes and stepped back. Their power had evaporated, stripped away not by force but by honor. The veteran said nothing more. His point had been made. He gave a small nod to the boy, then turned and began to walk away, his boots echoing against the tile floor. But before he reached the doors, a voice called out. Sir, he turned. It was the smaller boy, standing taller now than when the day began. His voice trembled, but his words carried weight. Thank you for everything. The veteran's eyes softened. He gave the faintest smile and replied with words that would linger long after he left. Carry respect wherever you go. It will protect you more than any shield. In the days that followed, whispers of that moment spread across the school. The story traveled from classroom to classroom, from student to student. The hallway where cruelty once thrived became a place where laughter softened, where silence no longer meant approval, where respect began to take root. For the smaller boy, life did not suddenly become easy, but he carried himself differently. Each step was steadier. Each glance upward was braver. He knew that strength did not come from fists or insults, but from dignity. And for the bullies, the lesson burned. They had been humbled not by punishment, but by honor they could not match. It was a lesson they would carry into adulthood, shaping the kind of people they would one day become. As for the veteran, he did not stay for applause or recognition. He never did. His life was built on unseen sacrifices, on battles fought in silence, on scars that few could see. He had spoken not for himself, but for the principle he lived by, that respect was not optional, it was essential. There are moments in life when silence speaks louder than any shout, when dignity defeats cruelty, when respect becomes the greatest weapon of all. This was one of those moments. So now, the question turns to you, the listener of this story. What do you believe true strength is? Is it found in loud voices, in power over others, or in the quiet courage to protect and uplift? Take a moment to share your thoughts below. Tell us where you're watching from, and if this story moved you, let us know. And if you believe that respect and dignity should never be forgotten, join us by subscribing for more stories that honor the silent heroes around us. Because sometimes, the greatest battles are fought not on distant fields, but in the hallways of our everyday lives.